Hey y'all, Pastor Jeremy here, and today I want to share with you a few words from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer was a pastor in Nazi Germany. He hated the Nazis. He fled. His conscience wouldn't let him stay away, so he went back to try to make a difference. He resisted in every way that he thought he could, from assassination plots, which he regretted, to things like subversively founding a secret underground seminary in the style of a monastery. His resistance would ultimately cost him his life, and he was martyred in a Nazi concentration camp days before its liberation. I wanted to share with you today a few words from his book Life Together, which he wrote as a guide for his secret underground seminary. He writes this about fellowship in the chapter called Community. Christians are privileged to live in the visible fellowship of other Christians. It is by the grace of God that a congregation is permitted to gather visibly in the world, to share God's word and the sacrament. Not all Christians receive this blessing. The imprisoned, the sick, the scattered, the lonely, those who are proclaiming the gospel in faraway lands, they all are forced to stand alone. They know that visible fellowship is a blessing. They remember, as the psalmist did in Psalm 42, how they went with the multitude to the house of God with a voice of joy and praise, with a multitude that kept the holy day. The physical presence of other Christians is a source of incomparable joy and strength to the believer. Longingly, the imprisoned Paul calls for his dear beloved son in the faith, Timothy, to come to him in prison in his last days. He's seeking that community and that fellowship again. The believer feels no shame when they yearn for the physical presence of other Christians. I don't think we will take for granted again the feeling of going to church. Handshakes, hugs, smiles, conversation, sitting in a room, sharing a cup of coffee. These are holy blessings from the Lord. My prayer for you and for me in this season is that we will find community in different ways, that we will take the initiative to be community for each other, that we'll send those texts, we'll make those calls, we'll write those letters, and that in participating in our strange and various ways to encounter each other as church at this time, that we will find that incomparable joy and strength that comes through fellowship with other believers. It's going to take work. It's harder. It's different. It's not how it normally was. We grew accustomed to how things were. But we're not the first to have to gather at a distance. We're not the first to love each other across space. And so we join with Christians throughout time and history and location that have had to gather in strange and creative ways. And we thank God that ours is fairly straightforward, that our life is still insulated by safety and privilege. And we long for the day when we will be back together. I encourage you to pray for Christians around the world that can't gather, for those for whom it's dangerous to be a Christian. That is still a strong reality in the world today. Pray for the church in under-resourced and developing nations where the infrastructure is already crumbling under the weight of the COVID outbreak. Pray for those in your community who feel sick, imprisoned, scattered, or lonely. And go and be a church to them. The church is not closed. The church has been deployed. Go and be the church. I love you. I miss you. I thank God for you. Grace and peace, friends.